But first, we want to begin with an update on the state of this country. On Saturday, former President Barack Obama went golfing at the Robert Trent Jones Country Club in suburban Virginia. He's a member there. Obama was driven to the course about 40 miles from his home in the District of Columbia by a government chauffeur. Here's a picture of it from Politico. If you look, you can see that Obama is clearly enjoying himself, and honestly, why wouldn't he be? It's beautiful out on the links and airy. You'll notice there aren't many people around, and that's because both Virginia and Washington, D.C. are still under quarantine. Everybody else is locked at home, as they have been for more than a month, but not former President Obama. For him, golfing at his country club was an essential activity. Now, 2 days later, after this picture was taken, the beleaguered residents of Washington, D.C. began to receive a public service announcement on their phones. The message had been recorded at the request of the D.C. government by Barack Obama's wife, the former First Lady, Michelle Obama. Here's what the message said.
Remember, we urge you to stay home except if you need essential health care, essential food or supplies, or to go to your essential job.
Stay home except for essential health care, essential food, essential jobs. That is Michelle Obama's message to you. It didn't seem to occur to her that those standards might also apply to her family, and that's why she didn't mention essential trips to your country club. The fact that the rules apply to them doesn't seem to occur to anyone in power at the moment. Just a few weeks ago, Lori Lightfoot, the mayor of Chicago, was caught getting her hair done at a time when the city of Chicago had closed salons to mere civilians. Lightfoot's stylist ratted her out on Facebook. Her excuse, quote, "I'm the public face of this city. I'm on national media, and I'm out in the public eye." In other words, said Lightfoot, "I'm far more important than you are. Shut up." Across the country, our leaders are making a mockery of the quarantines they so enthusiastically enforce. They have no intention of abiding by the restrictions they impose on their fellow citizens. They have no interest in any scientific development, and increasingly there are many of them, that challenges the wisdom of their lockdowns. Day by day, evidence accumulates that mass quarantines are not achieving what politicians claimed they would achieve, not even close. Huge numbers of people have been infected anyway. Far fewer of them are dying than we expected. Our political leaders, meanwhile, pretend as if none of this is happening. Just yesterday, Maine Governor Janet Mills extended her state's lockdown into the indefinite future. She commanded citizens to remain in their homes except for essential activities and, quote, occasional grocery shopping. Mills prohibited bars and restaurants and summer camps and some state parks from opening. She made it illegal for hotels to book guests, even for future stays. She canceled every summer festival in the state. She told every church to keep its doors locked, ensuring that many of them will go defunct and disappear forever. And she told the people of Maine to change their personal lives, including in the most intimate ways. No shaking hands, the governor ordered with great emphasis. Thanks to Janet Mills' decisions, Maine will never be the same. But these restrictions are all necessary, she explained, thanks to the extreme and unusual peril that the state of Maine faces.
I want to be clear. We are not out of the woods yet, and likely will not be for some time.
Not out of the woods yet. Those are bracing words. They sound like something that Winston Churchill might have said during the Blitz. So what exactly do these woods Janet Mills refer to look like? Well, at the very moment she spoke, a grand total of 33 people were being treated in Maine hospitals for the coronavirus. 33 people out of a population of more than 1.3 million people. Over the full course of this entire epidemic, just 51 people in the state of Maine have died from the coronavirus. Meanwhile, and there's always a flip side, directly because of the lockdowns that Mills ordered, more than 10% of Maine's population is now unemployed. All over the state, businesses are failing. A forecast produced by Oxford Economics predicts that Maine will be hit harder and longer by these lockdowns than any other state in the country. So is this a proportionate response to the threat? No, it's not. It's vandalism. Mills' speechwriter worked hard to make her reckless policy sound poetic.
People who now are staying apart so that someday we can all be together again.
Someday we can be together again. Well, thanks, Governor. We appreciate your kindness in allowing that. So how long will that be until we can be together again. Well, Mills, who was clearly deeply enjoying her newfound power, didn't specify how long. There's, quote, no timeline for that. Things will not be normal soon, she warned. We are inventing a new normal, end quote. Now, you may be wondering, where exactly does Janet Mills derive the power to invent a, quote, new normal for 1.3 million people, to remake human society in whatever form she chooses? Mills did not explain that either. Instead, the governor read a selection from a 31-year-old novelist called Veronica Roth. Roth wrote that, quote, gritting your teeth through pain is part of the, quote, slow walk toward a better life. Deep thoughts from Janet Mills. A slow walk toward a better life. That's what Mills is promising. But wait a second. Wasn't this all supposed to be about a public health emergency, the latest epidemiology, science? Yeah, that was last month. It's now about, quote, a better life. People in power abuse their power. That may be the lesson here. The arrival of a terrifying new virus from China gave our leaders more power than anyone has had in the history of this country. 6 weeks ago, America was something resembling an imperfect democracy. We had an election on the horizon that we were sort of paying attention to. Back then, Andrew Cuomo was considered a thuggish, possibly corrupt regional leader. But suddenly everything has changed. Now, this is an oligarchy managed by bureaucrats and tech moguls, none of whom are accountable to voters. Our leaders are making decisions that will affect your family forever with virtually no oversight or accountability. And of course, they love it. We shouldn't be surprised they don't want it to end. Jeff Bezos, for example, has made billions of dollars since the lockdown began. How shocked are you that his personal newspaper, the Washington Post, is arguing at the highest possible volume that the lockdowns must continue? Not very shocked. They all feel that way. This is the best thing that has ever happened to them. It's their chance. Let's say you once tried to run the country, but on 2 separate occasions, voters rejected you. They disliked you, and they disliked your program so much that they elected a casino owner from reality television instead. What if that happened to you? You'd probably be pretty stung by it and bitter. And then one day you wake up and the country is in chaos. Normal life has been suspended. This is the perfect opportunity to impose your will on a paralyzed nation. You would seize that opportunity, and she has.
Every form of health care should continue to be available, including reproductive health care that eventually and quickly, I hope, gets us to universal health care. This would be a terrible crisis to waste, as the old saying goes.
More abortion! Universal health care! Those are the required responses to the Wuhan coronavirus, declares Hillary Clinton. Yeah. Every politician on all sides has an ideological wish list. Usually it's filled with strange and unlikely ideas that under normal circumstances are kept in check by voters. As a group, voters instinctively distrust ideology, and for good reason. No one's keeping those ideas in check now. Nobody cares what voters think anymore. It's time to govern without limits. Watch disgraced New York Mayor Bill de Blasio explain that as a matter of public health or something, we need more, quote, inclusion and equity.
This city was written off more times than I can count. This city came back stronger every time. Now we're going to come back stronger and fairer. Immediate actions the city government needs to take and build out as part of the bigger vision is a city task force on racial inclusion and equity. Focusing on the disparities we're seeing already, making sure that we are addressing structural racism that is obviously present in the realities we're facing with this disease.
So this pandemic is really about structural racism. That's what Bill de Blasio was telling us. Bet you didn't know that. Bet you assumed it was a virus. Remember? How confused are you? Doesn't matter, because Bill de Blasio doesn't care what you think. Like all of our leaders, from now on, he plans to do exactly what he wants. And he can. Dr. John Lee is a retired professor of pathology. He joins us tonight. Doctor, thanks so much for coming on. So, from a medical standpoint, epidemiological standpoint, how would you assess our country's, our political leaders' response to this pandemic? Has it been effective?
Well, I think we can understand why they did it, because, it seemed very scary, and we had very distressing pictures beamed in from places like Italy and China and New York. But I think the question is, what do we do next? I mean, now that we've got ourselves into this position, should we be continuing with it? And the information that we've got is different than it was a few weeks ago, and it's clear that the virus is not anywhere near as scary as it first appeared to be. It is a nasty virus. That's true. It is killing people. It does cause nasty infections. But whereas the original death rate was thought to be around 3.4%, it's now going to be somewhere between 0.2 and 0.1%, which is 17 to 34 times less. And whereas the epidemiological models were predicting that maybe 80% of us were going to catch it at any one time, it looks like that's probably going to be near the 15% mark. So, you know, the scary pictures that we saw from some of these places probably were more to do with specific factors to do with those places than the virus itself. And what we've got to do now is question whether prolonging the lockdown is a sensible response to what is not as big a threat as we originally thought it was.
Do you think prolonging the lockdown, which in many places is happening, has officially been prolonged, do you think that's an appropriate response from an epidemiological standpoint?
Well, I don't think it is actually, because I think not only is the virus not as bad as we thought it was, but the lockdown is causing manifest harms. I mean, Hippocrates 2,500 years ago told us that a key thing in medicine was first do no harm. So you've got to be sure that your cure is better than what you're trying, you know, your treatment is going to be better than the disease. And whereas COVID is clearly causing illness and death, it's mainly causing that in groups of people who actually already have quite serious, life-threatening conditions, and also, age is not on their side often. And that isn't to say that everybody's life isn't important, but the question is, should we be, taking the livelihoods and affecting the lives and education and well-being of the large majority of the population who really aren't going to be affected much by this disease, in order, in theory, to maybe protect some people who are going to be affected by this disease? It seems to me that the Swedish model of, carrying on reasonably normally, but with some social responsibility in trying to isolate ourselves from this virus, is a sensible model. But the thing is, there's no science of lockdown. This sort of totalitarian response to a virus has never been tried before. And fundamentally, although you can make arm-waving suggestions that doing the lockdown might be slowing the spread, you can make equally valid arm-waving suggestions that it isn't slowing the spread at all. I mean, every time you breathe out when you've got this virus asymptomatically, you breathe out 10 million virus particles. These spread on the wind. Do we really think that keeping 2 meters apart from other people is going to stop the spread?
It doesn't seem to have done that so far at all. Dr. Lee, thank you for your perspective tonight. It's good to talk to you.
Thank you.
So you're hearing political leaders say that the